ever missed a funeral because everyone thought someone else would have let you know? Or those who were doing the notifications had never heard of you? This has been a particular problem over the past few years when funerals were deferred or tiny affairs which only the most immediate family could attend. The missed notification recently happened to me. A first cousin living 200 miles away died, and I only found out at the last minute when one of his children sent an email asking if I had any memories of his youth to include in his eulogy. My instant answer was, "Who died?" the writer having assumed that I'd heard. And then, having grabbed a very early train, managed to make it to the graveside funeral to discover that his wife had died 3 years earlier, and I hadn't heard about that either. On the trip home, I began a list of people to notify for each branch of my family. A key person in each organization in which I'm active, my bishop, the chair and warden of my church, my lawyers, doctors, and the list kept growing of those who would, I think, want to know that I'd gone on to a far better world. When I got home, I checked the number of email addresses in my computer, and I realized that was relatively useless. Hundreds and hundreds of names. But somehow I don't think Sobeys or Toronto Hydro or the tax department will be sending someone to my funeral. The world isn't the same as it once was. We are not a closely knit clan living in the same village. Today we're mobile. We travel. We move to the other side of the planet. We change homes and phone numbers and email addresses. We get new jobs and titles, and women are the worst to find. Too many change their names with their new marital status. And when that ends, they go on to a new name or back to an old one, all seemingly designed to make them difficult to find. Think about this for a moment. How many of those who would be interested in your passing are known by your children, grandchildren? And how many of your parents' or grandparents' contacts are on your phone? Thought so. Well, that takes care of the immediate who to tell question. So let's move on to the more challenging aspects. If there's one thing people don't like thinking about or talking about, is death, particularly their own. But even worse is having to initiate discussions with a loved one about their death and desires. So the kindest thing you can and should do for those who will be charged with making the arrangements that follow is to write down the details they will need at a time when they may well be too distressed to make the best of decisions. Do you really want your entire estate to be splurged on a teak casket with gold and hardware? Or would a more modest pine box be your choice? Making such wishes known takes a load of guilt off the executor who chooses a modest casket. Do you want to be buried in the city in which you live, thereby making it easy for those who live there to visit your gravesite? And if so, which of the dozens of venues would you choose? Or do you want to lie beside your parents in some country graveyard? And where are your ashes to be scattered? How is anyone to know if you don't tell them or write it down? There is a myriad of decisions that we ministers seek answers to when approached about a funeral. And so often it's received with a blank look or the comment, "Mother was very religious, but we aren't. She would just want a church funeral." Which brings us to these choices. What service? Would she want the Book of Common Prayer or the Book of Alternative Services? Or would some more modern departure be more comforting for non-church goers? What music? Did she have a favorite hymn or two? Would she like Lord of the Dance or Abide With Me? Would she like to include Frank Sinatra's My Way or Elvis Presley's version of Amazing Grace or Norman Greenbaum's Spirit in the Sky? What readings? Does she want To Everything There Is a Season of Ecclesiastes 3, which was read at her wedding? Or just stick with the traditional 15th chapter of Paul's letter to the Corinthians? A favorite song? Or go with the 23rd that comforts just about everyone? Perhaps she has a poem that she quoted ad nauseum, or one that inspired her life. Who, if anyone, will do a eulogy? Or will you just leave it to the minister? What blessings would she want passed on to those as those assembled left the graveside? Perhaps the Irish, "And may the road rise up to meet ya," reflecting her heritage, or the traditional, "The Lord bless you and keep you, that she heard each Sunday as the service concluded. And we aren't finished yet. Where will mourners go to pay their respects? Will you be at your house laid out in the living room? Well, I certainly hope to be. Or at a funeral home? Will there be an hour before the service at your church? Will there be any viewing? Do you want a closed casket? Or do you want to be seen in your favorite outfit? And which one is that? Would you like a reception after the funeral? At your house? At the funeral home? Your favorite restaurant? Your club? Will there be alcohol or tea? Any food? Snacks or a full meal? Buffet or sit down? What is the budget? How much money do you want spent on this? In the early 1970s, I attended a wake that the departed had left $1,000 to cover the bar bill at the press club. Before the night was over, each of his two best buddies had added another $1,000 apiece, which would more than have provided the down payment on a house. So many decisions that are easy to answer for yourself and so difficult for someone else to figure out. They just aren't items normally included in dinner table conversations. A cousin who obviously knew what she wanted had left instructions to include in her death notice. Celebrating her life. Wear pink, her favorite color, or other colors as Eileen's wishes were to discouraging wearing all black. Thank you. When you get a chance, think about the many choices that are left for those you love to make. And then be kind and jot a few notes down. But remember to tell the person who is going to be making those choices where that notebook is to be found. The other alternative is to pre-plan your funeral at the funeral home, and they will just do as you dictated. But that doesn't leave a lot of room for others to make changes, other than picking the flowers to be sent to the funeral home. And if you go that route, make sure someone knows which funeral home. The big thing to remember when making these decisions is that the funeral is really for the living, not for you, just because your name is on the service leaflet. You want those attending to feel comfortable and comforted. It's not a time for proving how religious you were. It is a time for those who cared for you to gather and be together in their love for you. It's a time for reassurance that this is not the end, and that the time will come when you will all be together once more. So make your choices with these thoughts in mind. And then, most important of all, stress that these notes were made for you thinking to make things easier for them. The goal was to help their decision making, and you are fine with whatever they decide. You were just trying to help out. Your words are not etched in stone, although suggestions for a tombstone may be. Look at it as a cost-saving, nerves-saving, and family harmony producing project. Surely one of those rationale will appeal to you, and I guarantee that not only is it a Christian thing to do, your family will bless you for expending the time and effort on their behalf. And once you've taken care of the once dead things that must be done and decided bit, get on with the living of a great and glorious life. Remember, we only pass by this way once. So may it be. Amen. It looks like a big project, but it isn't. Set aside an hour one evening, and the major points will be done. Best of all, you can always change it if you move, find a new favorite hymn, or rethink any detail under the sun. If you'd like a checklist, send me an email at dametemplar@gmail.com, and I'll get one out to you.